What does it mean to live a righteous life? This question often leads us down a path filled with moral complexities and profound truths about human nature. In the quiet village of Merri, where the maples towered high and the streams sang sweet melodies, the people believed they knew the answer. The village was home to an elderly man named Elias, who was revered for his wisdom and kindness. Elias spent his days teaching the young and caring for the needy, living a life many considered the epitome of righteousness. He often told his fellow villagers, "Righteousness is not just in what we do, but why we do it." One bright spring morning, as the village awoke to the chirping of birds and the smell of blooming flowers, a traveling preacher arrived. Gathered in the old wooden church, the villagers listened intently as the preacher spoke passionately about God's expectations for humanity. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice echoing through the hall, "God has given us many reasons to walk this earth, and one of the foremost is to practice righteousness. This is not merely our duty, it is our privilege. For God said, 'Righteousness should be the mantle you wear.' The second reason for your being upon this earth, following the fundamental call to love." The preacher's words stirred a mixture of feelings among the people. After the sermon, Elias, who had listened quietly, invited the preacher to share a meal. Over freshly baked bread and stew, Elias asked, "You spoke of righteousness as our second reason for being here. How do you interpret this in our daily lives?" The preacher, impressed by Elias's genuine curiosity, replied thoughtfully, "To live righteously is to align our actions with God's will, to foster justice, mercy, and humility. It's about making decisions that reflect not just our personal desires, but also the greater good of others." Elias nodded, adding, "And yet, it's also about understanding. Every day, we are faced with choices. Some are clear, while others require us to discern deeply the right course of action. Righteousness, then, is also our commitment to seeking this understanding, to continually ask ourselves if our actions reflect God's love and justice." The conversation between Elias and the preacher soon became a regular part of village life. Their dialogues on righteousness drew crowds, becoming weekly gatherings where villagers discussed ethical dilemmas and explored the spiritual dimensions of everyday decisions. As months turned into years, these discussions sparked a transformation throughout Merri. People began to help each other more earnestly, to forgive more readily, and to consider the consequences of their actions more carefully. The village, once quiet and unassuming, became known far and wide as a place where righteousness was not just preached but practiced. Years later, a young man from Merri set out to explore the world. Everywhere he went, he shared stories of his home, a village that thrived on understanding, love, and righteousness. People often asked him the secret to Merri harmony and happiness. He would smile and say, "In Merri, we believe righteousness is not merely an obligation, but a path to truly understanding our place in the world. It teaches us to look beyond ourselves, to live lives that speak of love and justice. And in this way, we honor the reason God has given us for being on this earth." Through the tale of Elias and the preacher, the concept of righteousness, often abstract and lofty, was brought down to the everyday actions and decisions of a small village, showing how profound principles can indeed shape real-life communities. In the story of Merri, righteousness was revealed not only as a divine expectation, but as a practical blueprint for living well and meaningfully with others. As the young man from Merri continued his travels, he carried with him not only stories, but also the spirit of his village. His tales of Merri commitment to righteousness began to inspire others to reflect on their own lives and communities. People were moved by the idea that a small village could enact such powerful principles in daily life, transforming an abstract ideal into something tangible and achievable. In one particular town, the young man met a community leader, Helena, who was intrigued by his stories. Helena invited him to speak at a community gathering, eager for her own town to hear about the principles of righteousness that had so profoundly affected Merri. During the gathering, the young man shared, in Merrywood, righteousness is not seen as a burden but as a guiding light. It shapes how we treat our neighbors, how we resolve conflicts, and how we support those in need. It's about making sure that every action we take is infused with integrity and compassion. Helena listened intently, realizing that while her town was successful in many ways, it often lacked a cohesive moral foundation. Inspired by Mary Wood's example, she proposed an initiative where members of her community would meet regularly to discuss not just community issues, but also how they could approach these issues righteously, ensuring that their solutions promoted fairness, empathy, and respect for everyone involved. These discussions started small, but as more people participated, they began to see changes. Local businesses started cooperating more with each other. Schools incorporated lessons on ethics and community service, and even the local government took measures to ensure their policies were just and beneficial to all citizens. Years passed, and the influence of the young man's stories about Merrywood and its practice of righteousness spread wider than he could have ever imagined. Communities began to connect with each other, sharing ideas and successes, forming a network of towns and villages, all striving towards a common goal of living righteously. The young man eventually returned to Merrywood, his heart full of joy from seeing the impact of his village's principles on the world. Upon his return, he found that Merrywood had continued to flourish, its reputation as a beacon of righteousness, attracting visitors from far and wide who came to learn from its example. Elias, now even older, greeted him warmly. Your journeys have brought light to many, just as you have brought back new ideas that we, too, can learn from Eliasir with a smile. Together they walked through Merrywood, observing children play in harmony, adults engaging in thoughtful discussion, and elders sharing wisdom with the next generation. It was clear that righteousness, this divine mandate, had woven itself into the fabric of daily life, creating a community not only of moral individuals, but of collective moral strength. In the twilight of his years, Elias penned a book about the philosophy and practice of righteousness, using Merrywood as a case study. This book, titled The Righteous Path, A Journey Through Merrywood's Soul, became a cornerstone text for any community seeking to understand how righteousness could be realistically and beautifully integrated into daily life. Thus, the simple question of what it means to live a righteous life, which started in a small village church, had grown into a worldwide dialogue, transforming lives and communities, and reaffirming the profound truth that righteousness is indeed one of the essential reasons for humanity's journey on earth. Elias's book spread far beyond the reaches of Merrywood, touching hearts and igniting conversations in distant lands. It was translated into several languages, each edition carrying the essence of Merrywood's spirit and the profound lessons it had to offer about living a life of righteousness. Communities around the world were inspired to emulate Merrywood's example, adopting its principles and integrating them into their own cultures and traditions. One such community was nestled in the mountains of a faraway country, where people faced daily challenges due to harsh climates and limited resources. The village elder, inspired by Elias's writings, initiated a project called Righteous Roots, aimed at fostering community cooperation to improve living conditions. They focused on sustainable agriculture, equitable resource distribution, and building a strong, supportive community network. Inspired by the stories of Merrywood, they held regular meetings where villagers could discuss personal and communal issues, ensuring that their solutions adhered to the principles of fairness, compassion, and mutual respect. Back in Merrywood, the young man who had traveled the world found himself stepping into Elias's shoes as the village's new teacher and moral guide. He continued the tradition of weekly discussions, occasionally reading passages from Elias's book, which never failed to resonate with the listeners, whether they were hearing them for the first time or revisiting them as old friends. These discussions became the heart of Merrywood's community life, evolving over time to address new challenges and incorporate fresh perspectives. Technology, though sparingly used, helped connect Merriwood with other communities around the globe who were also striving to live righteously. This network allowed them to share successes, challenges, and innovations, creating a global tapestry of righteousness that was diverse yet unified in its core ideals. Merriwood itself transformed subtly but significantly. The village expanded, welcoming new families attracted by its reputation as a place of integrity and warmth. The local school introduced a curriculum centered around ethical education, teaching children not just academic subjects, but also the importance of character and community involvement. Businesses in and around Merriwood thrived, adhering to ethical practices that were both profitable and socially responsible. One day, the young man, now middle-aged, decided to document the ongoing story of Merriwood and its impact on the world. He embarked on writing a sequel to Elias's book, titled Righteousness Rekindled, Merriwood's Legacy Continues. This new volume aimed to capture how the principles of righteousness had evolved and how they continued to influence both local and global communities. As he wrote, he reflected on the profound journey that had started with a simple yet profound question about the meaning of living a righteous life. He realized that righteousness, as a principle, was dynamic and ever-evolving, shaped continuously by the actions and decisions of those who practiced it. It was not a static code, but a living, breathing ethos that adapted to meet the needs and challenges of each new generation. Righteousness Rekindled was published to widespread acclaim, serving not only as a testament to Merriwood's enduring spirit, but also as a beacon for future generations seeking guidance on how to integrate righteousness into their lives. It reminded everyone that righteousness, while universally applicable, must be personally embraced and actively practiced. In the end, the story of Merriwood and its commitment to righteousness became more than just a local legend or a moral experiment. It became a global movement, a beacon that guided many towards a more ethical, compassionate, and fulfilling way of living. It reaffirmed that the quest for righteousness, deeply ingrained in the human spirit, was indeed a fundamental reason for our being on earth, shaping not only individual lives but the very fabric of societies around the world. As years rolled into decades, Merriwood's influence continued to ripple outwards, touching countless lives and communities. The young man, now an elder himself, stood one crisp autumn evening, looking over the village that had taught so much to so many. Children played in the fading light, their laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. Families gathered around their dinner tables, sharing stories of their day, and the community hall buzzed with another round of discussions on how to better the world around them. In this moment of peaceful reflection, the elder realized that Merriwood had become more than just a village. It was a symbol of hope and a testament to the enduring power of living righteously. It had shown that when individuals come together, guided by the principles of justice, empathy, and integrity, they can create not just a better community, but a better world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over Merriwood, the elder made his way to the old church where it all began. He opened the heavy wooden door and stepped inside, where the echoes of past sermons whispered through the air. Sitting quietly in the last pew, he took out a small, well-worn notebook and began to write a message for future generations. In our pursuit of righteousness, we found more than just a purpose. We discovered our true connection to each other and to the divine. This journey does not end with us. It is an eternal path that each generation must choose to walk. Remember that righteousness is both our legacy and our challenge. It is the light we must carry forward and the bond that unites us across time and space. With a final look around the empty church, the elder closed his notebook and left, leaving behind the quiet solitude for the vibrant life outside. The message he penned would later be found and added to the community's archives, a timeless reminder of Merriwood's enduring wisdom. Merriwood continued to flourish, its story a beacon across the globe, inspiring all who heard it to strive for a life of righteousness. And so, through each person it touched, through every community it inspired, Merri Wood's legacy lived on, a profound testament to the belief that living righteously was indeed a foundational reason for humanity's presence on earth, a principle as vital as it was transformative, guiding us toward a more just, compassionate, and unified world. You are the hands and feet of Christ on earth. If you found value in this, please share it, for you never know who you will bless. Stay in faith, keep moving forward, and know now is your time to shine what God put inside of you, no matter who disagrees. God needs you to flip the script for His glory heaven on earth.